A constructors champion was crowned today. We have a lot of goodbyes to go through, and I do mean a lot. And of course, one is quite significant that we have to get through. But yes, today, the Constructors' Championship, 21 points separated McLaren and Ferrari entering this weekend. McLaren has led the Constructors for the good chunk of the second half of the season, I want to say. I can't remember when they overtook Red Bull for that first position, but Ferrari had gotten into the mix. And of course, 21 points, it's within a race. It's achievable, but it's still asking for a lot. And the start of the weekend did not go well for Ferrari. Yeah, Charles Leclerc had a 10-place grid penalty due to a battery component needing to be changed. I think it was a battery component. Correct me if I'm wrong there. So they've already got a 10 grid slot penalty, and then Charles Leclerc qualifies 14th. So he's got to start at the back of the field now, and it's like, okay, everything is crumbling around Ferrari for this weekend. Grid penalty, poor qualifying by one of their cars. They're more than likely need a 1-2 to win this Constructors. And even worse for them, McLaren goes 1-2. They qualify on the front row. And if you're McLaren at this point, it's don't screw up. Don't take each other out. And you're home free. If you simply win the race, they cannot catch you in the points. They can finish second and third, fastest lap. Heck, give them both a fastest lap, and they still can't catch you in the points. So just simply don't screw up. Don't stumble on yourself. Don't trip over yourself. Oh, here comes Max Verstappen. Yeah, very quickly in this race, Max Verstappen tried to make this Constructors' Championship interesting. I don't know if Ferrari gave him a paycheck. I don't know if he has an anti-McLaren agenda. That's a joke, by the way. But yeah, Max Verstappen made an aggressive move into turn one. Spun out Oscar Piastri, and McLaren probably, they were a little scared for a moment. But Lando Norris at this point, he had got the lead and he was running away. And once again, as long as they won the race, it didn't matter what anyone else did. Well, specifically Ferrari. It didn't matter what Ferrari did. Like, just win the race. And ultimately, that's what they did. Now, Ferrari did end up 2-3, that example I provided earlier. But once again, all McLaren had to do was win. Piastri had a bad race because his race got ruined on lap one. He also got a penalty for rear-ending Franco Colapinto and giving him a tire puncture. So yeah, you could afford one car to have a bad race, but more than likely, if that were to happen, you were going to have to win the race with the other car. And, well, McLaren did that. And for the first time in the 21st century, the first time since 1998, McLaren are the Constructors' champions. Both teams, by the way, long droughts since their last Constructors' Championship. 98 for McLaren, I think 2008 for Ferrari. It's been a long time. It's been a fat minute. I mean, think about McLaren, what they've done since 1998. They've won drivers' championships with Mika Hakkinen again in 1999, with Lewis Hamilton in 2008, right? 2008. They've won numerous races with other world champions, Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button, and of course they've won races with Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Daniel Ricciardo won a race. The list goes on of who I could name of who's won with McLaren since 1998. But they went through a really rough patch in the 2010s, post 2012. And they went 9 years without a win. They were terrible at times. It was a rough patch, let's just say, to put it nicely. I could list more examples. But point being, McLaren had a rough stretch, and they've picked it up. They really have. They're now back to where they were, what they were known for 25 plus years ago, whether it was Mika Hakkinen, whether it was Prost and Senna, whether it was, if you go way back, Niki Lauda, James Hunt. I mean, you can go way down the list. McLaren is probably the second most significant team in Formula One history. Obviously, Ferrari, I would say. I'm sure people could argue McLaren, though. But point being is that McLaren has had a strong history in Formula One, and the fact that they have not won a Constructors' Championship in, what's it been, 26 years now, it wasn't pretty. It's not great whenever a historic team goes on a long drought, but for a historic team to end that drought, it's a really big deal. It's a major accomplishment. Andrea Stella did a great job as the team principal. Obviously, Zach Brown, the CEO, they've all done a great job. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris did great this year. I know Lando Norris wanted the Drivers' Championship. He made his fair share of mistakes in that title fight. But I feel like today's win for him, I know it's a small sample size because it's like, what, 4? He's won 3 races now or whatever it is. It's a small sample size, but I would say that's his biggest win in his career. Obviously, you could argue the first one or the other 1 or 2, however many it is. But here's the reasoning why, is because there was a lot of pressure on today, and when Piastri got took out in the first corner, there's a lot of, oh, well, we can't lose this race now. We can't lose position. We can't lose points. And it could lead to a mistake, some panic, some overthinking. And instead, they just kind of said, hey, let's chill. Let's go on, win the race. Don't leave it in doubt. And that's what they did. Lando Norris dominated this race. Speaking of, I guess we're going to the results of the race now. But Lando Norris just dominated this race. But he might have led every lap, honestly. If he didn't, he lost laps led in the pit cycle. So, but seriously though, Lando Norris, I would say his most impressive win to date, just because of the circumstance, because of the pressure on top of him. We've talked all year about how bad his race starts have been. Today, with the championship on the line, needing to get a good start, needing to get off the line well, and he did that, and he dominated this race. So, Lando Norris, when the pressure was high in the Constructors' Championship battle, he comes through, he wins the race, he clinches the Constructors' Championship for McLaren. Disappointment for Ferrari. Sainz second, Leclerc third. They had a great year, nevertheless. Both drivers won multiple races. Both drivers had great seasons. It stings for Ferrari. Can't put it any other way. It was right there. The final Constructors results, they finished 14 points. 14 whole points behind McLaren. You could go back to a race, you could go back to Azerbaijan and say if Carlos Sainz survives the last lap with Perez, finishes 4th, finishes 3rd, that's the difference. Well, I guess he would have had to finish 3rd there. And yeah, you could do it for both teams, really. And, at the end of the day, it's not going to do anything. It's hypotheticals, but they were right there. So close. It's heartbreaking. It stings if you're Ferrari, if you're a Ferrari fan. It's been a long time without a championship in Maranello, but they have a bright future. I think it's safe to say. But our first goodbye, our first farewell, our first change in this whole finishing results, then Carlos Sainz, of course, highly known that he will not be at Ferrari next year. He will be getting replaced by someone. Can't remember who the guy is. I can't remember who's going to be at Ferrari next year. But yes, Carlos Sainz had a good stint at Ferrari. He won multiple races. He had a multi-win year this year. He did good. He got them a 2nd place in the Constructors. He did a solid job at Ferrari. He beat Leclerc in 2021 on the points. He did a really good job, honestly. Sure, they fell short in the Constructors this year, but Sainz was a good driver at Ferrari. He had a good stint at Ferrari. And Ferrari, once again, kind of like McLaren, they have had their down years as of late. But with Sainz, I think they finished 3rd in the Constructors in 2021. They won races in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Remember, Carlos Sainz was the only non-Red Bull driver to win in all of 2023. Remember that. So, Carlos Sainz, solid stint with Ferrari, won races, almost got them a Constructors' Championship, but he will be off to Williams next year. 3rd place, Charles Leclerc. He has got a big opportunity next year with him and his teammate. Once again, forgetting who that teammate is. I just can't remember this guy's name. Can't remember if he's done anything ever. But Charles Leclerc, big opportunity if Ferrari can continue this momentum. They've had speed all year, but at times they've looked like, the best team. Now, not consistently, but, you look at Coda. They were really fast. You look at Monza, the way things fell for them, they looked really fast. They've had their moments. Mexico with Sainz, they've looked really fast. They've had their moments this season where they have looked like the best team. Now, as a whole, McLaren was probably the best team, specifically the last 2/3 of the season. But if those moments come up more often for Ferrari and they capitalize on those moments, not only will they be winning a Constructors' Championship next year, we're looking at a potential Drivers' Championship. Now, I think McLaren is going to be in that mix next year once again. And depends on how Red Bull shows up next year. Verstappen's going to be a factor, and, obviously Mercedes too, but I'm excited for next year. Both championship. I'm glad we got a championship that went down to the wire this year in the Constructors, but yeah. 4th place. Hamilton. All right. All seriousness here. I'm probably going to just rattle on for like 4 minutes here. And that really does not, 4 minutes or 5 minutes, however long I talk here, it's not enough time to talk about Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes alone, if you take Lewis Hamilton's stint at Mercedes and take it out and put that as its own career, take out his McLaren career, take out whatever he does at Ferrari in the future, 84 wins, 6 championships, a part of 8 Constructors' Championships, that alone could put you in the argument for the greatest driver of all time. That was one stint at a single team. You heard me right. 84 victories. I don't know how many podiums. Too many to count. That's a lot of podiums. 6 Drivers' Championships. I've got the graphic over here. So 6. And 8 Constructors. I think the Constructors' Championship, I think that's a really underrated thing to be a part of. So Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, you have an underrated statistic on your career website now, your career statistics. But Lewis Hamilton, what didn't he do at Mercedes is the better question. Yes, these last 3 years were a bit of a struggle. They were not great. But he won 6 championships in 12 years with the team. That is insanity. Or was it 11? 12? 11? However many years it was. He won 6 championships. He was a part of a fierce rivalry with his teammate Nico Rosberg. He had, I would say, solid competition in Valtteri Bottas, but he dominated Bottas. He had close calls with Sebastian Vettel. Of course, 2021, the title fight with Max Verstappen that went down to the wire. They still won the Constructors' Championship that year. And even in the years that he struggled at Mercedes, well, not even just him, Mercedes as a whole struggled, which is 2022 through now. He still managed to squeak out a couple of wins, still get podiums in every single year. So Lewis Hamilton, what he has done at Mercedes is nothing short of all-time greatness. The move when he initially made it to leave McLaren for Mercedes was viewed as insanity. Everyone questioned that move. Why are you going to Mercedes? Yeah, man. Safe to say it worked out for him. He did some donuts at the end of this thing. But yeah, it cannot be expressed enough how much Lewis Hamilton has meant to this team, how much this team has meant to him as well. But Lewis Hamilton was given a once in a generation, maybe a once in a century opportunity to go to a team. And when the opportunity presented itself, not just to have competitive cars, not just to have a shot at the championship, but to have the championship winning car, and he took full advantage. He dominated. He broke records. He did everything that you would want to see as a team. But for Lewis Hamilton as a driver, he put himself above almost everyone in the history books. Lewis Hamilton, what he has done at Mercedes, it's truly remarkable. Once again, I'm going to say these numbers again. 6 drivers' titles, and 2 of them he lost, went down to the last race. One against his teammate Rosberg, one against Verstappen in 21. That itself is another incredible accomplishment because you can think, man, if one thing turns, we're looking at 9 championships versus, or an 8 at Mercedes versus 6 at Mercedes. But once again, with the hypotheticals, I'll throw them away. But he's won 6 drivers' titles. 4 of those were in a row, by the way. He was a part of 8 Constructors' Championships and 84 race wins. Really cannot be expressed enough how much he has done in his career at Mercedes. That duo is going to go down as arguably the greatest. A lot of people will look at Schumacher and Ferrari, but Hamilton and Mercedes was an unstoppable duo when they were at their peak, and it's over. Just like that, it's over. Lewis Hamilton. I kept on saying, who's that driver going to Ferrari? It's Lewis Hamilton, and he's got a great opportunity next year in red. He's got a great opportunity. If Ferrari can keep it up, if they can be more consistent up front, they can compete for the wins. They've got a great shot at winning the constructors, and Lewis Hamilton has a great chance to once again make history, but this time it will be with Ferrari instead of Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, technically there's still 23 days left on that contract, I think, but Lewis Hamilton, no longer a Mercedes driver. You have seen the last of Lewis Hamilton in a Mercedes car in a Formula One race. Moving on to his teammate George Russell, it's his team now. Lewis Hamilton passed him on the last lap, but George Russell, Kimi Antonelli coming in next year, and he's supposed to be a great driver, but George Russell, these first couple of years with Antonelli, he's got to take control. He's got to say, this is my team. If we're going to be competitive, I'm the number one. I am the guy. He's got to assert that dominance. And Russell's been great. He has been. He's won races. He won a race this year. Won a couple of races this year, actually. So he's got a great opportunity ahead of himself. We'll see how he does next year. But George Russell, big opportunity. 7th, Pierre Gasly locked up a constructor spot. I think it was 6th. Yeah, it was 6th in the constructors standings for Alpine. Big deal for Alpine to finish up there in the constructors. Big year for them. Of course, the double podium at Brazil with Ocon, who we will talk about later. But yes, Alpine, big year for them to finish 6th in the constructors. Pierre Gasly, strong finish to the year for Alpine. Both Ocon and Gasly did fantastic. But Gasly with a P7 here, great day for him. Hülkenberg, P8, finishes just short of 7th in the constructors, but great day for Hülkenberg. He had a grid penalty, unfortunately, for, impeding, I think, or passing cars in the pit lane during qualify. I can't remember exactly, but he got a grid penalty. Hurt their day, but ultimately 8th. Fernando Alonso finishes in the points. Oscar Piastri did score a point in this race, so good for him. He is a constructors champion. Albon, Tsunoda, Zhou Guanyu, potentially his last Formula One race, scored points last week. That was incredible for him. Lance Stroll, Jack Doohan. This is nothing against him. He's going to be their driver next year. But Alpine did Ocon dirty, man. Ocon won you a race. That is the only race you have seen with victory under the Alpine name. First win under the Renault, Alpine, whatever you want to call it, since Alonso, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And what do? He scored all these podiums. He's won you a race. And what do? How do you send him off? You fire him. Or you tell him to leave with one race left. Come on, man. Look, if it was like his second year at the team, it had been a rough go. He had scored 0 podiums. He's wrecked a bunch of cars. And you let him go with one race, I'd say, man, that's tough. But it's kind of a business decision. But with everything that Ocon has done for you, and that's how you treat him? Shame. That's a shame. Once again, nothing against Doohan. He's got a great opportunity next year. But you got to feel bad for Ocon. Hopefully he can get Haas to beat Alpine in the constructors. That would be ironic. Kevin Magnussen, potentially his last race in Formula One with Haas. We've said that before. Liam Lawson, potentially his last race for RB because he might get promoted to Red Bull. I don't know. Bottas, potentially his last race. Yes, Valtteri Bottas, a very successful career in Formula One. Won a bunch of races when he was at Mercedes. Had that insane streak of making Q3. It was like over 100 races, I want to say. But never missed a Q3 in Mercedes equipment. Even extended that stint for his first couple of races at Alfa Romeo, which of course is now Sauber. Well, it was always Sauber. It just had the Alfa Romeo name. But Bottas, it wasn't the prettiest career at Sauber Alfa Romeo. He had his moments, though. He scored some points, a good amount of points. Unfortunately, he went pointless this year. I am sad. Colapinto, potentially his last race in Formula One for now at Williams, had a DNF. And then Sergio Perez, DNF, was on a lap 1 incident. Yeah, Sergio Perez won races at Red Bull. And I got to admit, it was tough because Perez had his moments where he looked pretty darn good in the Red Bull. I'm not saying that he was going to beat Verstappen in a championship, but he looked like a solid number 2, kind of at times like what Bottas was at Mercedes. But the problem is the consistency was never there. Perez won multiple races in, 2-3 straight seasons at Red Bull. But this year, the end of last year, just to say it didn't go well is an understatement. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's age. He's not even that old, but I really don't know what happened to Perez here at the end. He's shown a lot in his career that he's a very capable driver. He's a very good driver. But at the end of his Red Bull stint, man, just not pretty. Unfortunate to see him go out this way, but big opportunity for whoever replaces him in that Red Bull seat, Lawson, or if it's someone else. So thank you for watching this video. McLaren has won the Constructors' Championship. Max Verstappen, the Drivers' Champion. We already knew that, though. What a season. We had, let's see here, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton. 7 different winners to win multiple races. What a season, man. We had a new Constructors' Championship for the first time in 26 years. We had 2 historic teams, 2 of the most historic teams in Formula One history, fighting for the Constructors' Championship. We saw more history be made. We saw Max Verstappen once again win the Drivers' Championship. But we saw a lot of new winners. We saw a lot of multi-winners. And what a season. It was a pretty solid season, if you ask me. Hopefully next year, though. Next year, I'm begging McLaren, Ferrari, be serious franchises next year. If a McLaren driver and a Ferrari driver are fighting for the Drivers' Championship, that will be so beautiful. Historians of F1, historic long time F1 fans will be, it would be beautiful. So we need that next year. Honestly, I don't care who's in the title fight at the end of the day. I just want a title fight. But I got to admit, a McLaren versus Ferrari Drivers' Championship fight, whether it's Leclerc and Hamilton, or Leclerc versus Norris, Hamilton versus Norris, Hamilton versus Piastri, Leclerc versus Piastri, I don't care which order you do it in, it would be pretty cool to see that. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. It's been a fun Formula One season. For the rest of the off-season, we're in full off-season mode now. I'll keep you updated in the community post. I'll announce some things this week, what we're going to do in the off-season. I have some plans, live streams, and then also old footage to put out there just from races I went to this year, NASCAR. But thanks for watching again. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one.